Everybody,
it is showtime.
It's our new segment.
Or as, what's that monkey's name? It is time.
That's freaky. Taboo.
Oh, God.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you to the very first show of the 555 Foolish Mortals.
Thank you for joining us. That werewolf in there. He loves that.
So, who are the Foolish Mortals? I can't even say
You
it.
can't even
The
talk.
5 Foolish Mortals. Well, I am.
Dilly, Derick. Dilly.
And it's only Dr. Pepper.
Whatever.
It is, actually.
No, I know it is.
So, I am Derick.
And I'm Gregory.
If you forget our names, I'm Little Explorer.
I'm the Explorer.
We are from D&G Explorers.
DJ.
We also have Mr. Sunshine himself. Jim, take it away.
My name is Jim, and my channel is More Sunshine, Please.
That was short and sweet.
That's really sunshiny.
Yeah. We also have Charlie. Charlie, introduce yourself.
My name is Charlie. My channel is More Sunshine, Please.
No, that's mine, you thief!
My channel is what's my channel again?
Dizney Nerd Herders.
Dizney Nerd Herders. That's it. Thanks, Jim. Yes, Dizney Nerd Herders.
All right.
Go.
And last but not least, and the historian of the channel is.
Oh my gosh, are you referring to my age? Dear Lord. I'm 1/3 of Pepper Tree Villa.
And this is Ben, or he's known as the Mortal.
Yep, that's me today.
Awesome. So today you guys we're kind of not really sure what your topics are going to be, but in honor of Disney.
Well, we know
Plus,
one topic at least.
but as we grow the channel and look at future projects, we are because of Disney
Prime
Plus. Sorry,
Oh,
Disney
God.
Plus.
You're mixing Amazon Prime with Disney Plus.
And as Mr. Sunshine is
Noise.
making construction somewhere,
Sorry.
the recent
Disney Plus launch.
Thank you. We thought it would be fun to choose a movie that we really didn't know much about. I mean, I haven't
I
downloaded
grew up with it.
I've watched it several times. But it's a fun show.
It's okay.
This would be a fun show, first one to go because of Christmas, or Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We just went through Halloween. And
It's still a good Halloween Thanksgiving show.
exactly. So we thought this would be a perfect first show. So we're going to do a review on the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So we have us. You have the Adventures of More Sunshine, a play on that. Mortal Mole, a play on that. And the Horseman was framed. So we're interested to find out why the Horseman was framed. Interesting. But Greg, why don't we do a chat chat?
Well, his name is
I'm not ready.
to the Adventures of More Sunshine, Please. Okay. So we have what?
Sorry, I wasn't ready.
Raise your glass in the air and say, Dilly, Dilly, 5 Foolish Mortals.
Dilly,
5 Foolish Mortals.
only cherry Pepsi.
All right, Greg, welcome. Who is here today?
So first we have Leanne Sherbick. She was first in the chat. Thank you. Blake AM, Rob Fuzezi.
Ruffaz.
He changed Rob Fuzezi and Rob Fuzz. Okay. Disney Nerd Herders and Mouse Talk and Pam's Fam, Pepper Tree Villa, Fisher Fun Ventures. And I think we covered everybody so far. So welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right, so let's dive right into it. Do you guys want to add anything before we get started?
No, let's get started.
It's going to longer. You got to put it against your cut.
Fine.
All right, so maybe the reasons why we decided to do this. Who was the foolish mortal that brought this up?
I think it was you.
It was. It was me.
Everybody else.
Yes, but we thought it would be fun just to kind of get into Disney chats, possibly other things. But we're going to be mainly a Disney-centered group, whatever you want to call it. Mortals, I don't know what you want to call it, but
so that's the show.
Foolish Mortals, yeah.
We're a Disney I don't know if I should say Disney Channel, but we're a Disney YouTube channel. There, I broke it up.
Yes. So for us, we do as much cruising as we do Disney. This is going to be mainly centered around the Disney family. So we are looking forward to sharing our thoughts with you guys, and we hope you join us on our continued journey through this.
We have our Mr. Toad stuff up here. We did have an ornament of the Headless Horseman, but sadly one of the hooves broke off. So now,
no.
Yeah, so we're kind of going with what you guys are going through. So we'll probably have to go back to the Disney store and get a replacement for it.
Yep.
And now it's glue.
We can, I would say, let's glue. It makes it give it more personality.
Yeah. You can like color it in with some black marker. You never know. There's like a little wire sticking out, so you just got to put it in correctly.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the history of it. We're going to talk about where the ideas of them came from, the two stories, which came from books. And we're going to go over the story with the characters, the quality of the movie, what we think, like the animation style, and then what we liked and what we disliked about it. So that's kind of the set. We have 2 movies that we are going to be doing. So I think we should.
I wonder why they put those together.
That's a good thought. So we'll go into Mr. Historian here, not because of his age, but because of his wisdom. And we are going to go over to Ben. So Ben, a little bit about the history of this animated feature.
Well, this film was in development for several years. The thing about Mr. Toad is that Walt had actually pushed back on wanting to do this. Several people had suggested do a movie about the Wind in the Willows. But Walt, after seeing treatment after treatment after treatment, found that there wasn't enough of a story to make it a full-length feature film. So they, like a lot of other projects, they put it on the shelf and let it percolate for a while. The same thing went with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Good story, but not enough content for a full-length feature. It's not like today where they come up with writers in Hollywood that will pad a 15-minute idea into a 2-hour movie like The Grinch. So Walt, being the master storyteller, just said, you know what? Let's just go ahead, put this on the shelf. They finally got it into production on both stories, and why they married the 2 together isn't quite clear, but the narration during the movie from Bing Crosby, when they bridged one topic to the other, kind of explains how they kind of came together, but there's no real clear thing that I read in history as to why they put the 2 together. If anyone else has something to add to that, please add. But
I would just guess that it was there's a bit of Halloween in one story and a bit of Christmas in the other. Being the time of year, that's the only thing I can think might be the common theme, and they're not even the same holiday, so I don't know how much water that holds. But
yeah, well, it was released around October, so that's not probably not far from the truth.
I think they go well together. I mean,
they do go well together.
They've been together for how many years now?
It's a 70-year-old film. It was released in 1949.
And as we had discussed earlier, it was during the war times. So what was kind of going on with the production and other things that were in that?
Yeah, at that time, they really wanted to have some sort of feature-length film, and prior to the release of Mr. Ichabod and Mr. Toad, the studio was undergoing a lot of different transitions. There would be a storyboard artist that would be brought up into being the head of feature animation, and there was like this. It was a time when Walt had lost confidence in a lot of what was going on at the studio because of the unionization talks that had happened during the 40s, and the wartime effort taking away a lot of his prized animators. There was just a lot of people being shown the door, people going, people coming. It was just a really, really sad time in the history of the Disney studio at that time. I've read this book a couple of times, and it's a really, really good take on what was going on during the entire life of Walt Disney. Considering it's his biography, it should. But there's a lot of information in there that is relevant to the story here. Some of the, like I said, some of the people were kind of brought into key roles in the animation hierarchy, and then they would be there for a few months, and then they would be tossed out and then replaced with someone else. It was just a constant revolving door, which is why you didn't have a whole lot of solid storyboard artists, and writers that could do anything at that time. So just before Ichabod and Mr. Toad came out, they were also in pre-production on 2 films. One was Cinderella, the other was Alice in Wonderland. And Alice in Wonderland, they found a lot more challenging to do than Cinderella, so they opted to go with Cinderella before Alice in Wonderland. At one time, famous novelist Aldous Huxley had been hired to do some story or a treatment on Alice in Wonderland. But after about 5 meetings and 3 weeks at the studio, he never returned because he couldn't translate what he was trying to think of for the story and meet with what the animators and the storyboard people at the Disney studio were trying to do. So he, out of frustration, walked away.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's one of those. It's just another part of the history at that time in the studio where there was so much backstabbing and lack of trust, which makes it a miracle that any movies were released at that time. And I think that has a lot to do with the vignettes that were tied together. I was talking to the guys before we started the broadcast about the film that came before Ichabod and Mr. Toad. It's a film called Melody Time. It was released in 1948. And once it was released, it cost the studio at that time a record $2 million to produce, which was a lot of money. And it only made $1.3 million. At that time, because of the war, the World War II, the European theater market had gone away. And we couldn't have any movies from America released in Europe because of everything that had gone on with World War II. So they were still trying to figure that out. And at the time, they lost a lot of money on Melody Time, which made Walt even more gun shy on trying to put together some features. So that's where we are at the time that Ichabod and Mr. Toad was being put together.
Wow, that's a lot of cool history. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we had some more people join us.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to do a small little chat check. And I think I missed somebody, so I'll let you go say them. I was waiting for Jim to do a chat check.
Oh, sorry. Oh, darn it.
Okay.
So do I need to get it, Jim? Do I need to get it?
I went to Mouse Talk earlier, so I did. Okay, so welcome Mouse Talk. And then we have Tracy G. Alex, the Shep family, Mike Wheeler, Kelly Hastings, Stacey Rogers, Dances with Goofy, Brandy and Dave.
Stacey Herders in the house.
Stacey Herders, Stacey Rogers. TV just came in, so welcome everybody.
Guys. Thank you so much for joining us in our very first show. So,
reviewing the adventures of Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad.
class.
All right, guys. You remember when I was telling you right before 10 minutes going live, said our artistic department was working on a special project for us? Well, all right, guys. Like I told you, she's pretty talented. Stacey Herder had done this within 20 minutes, I think. So here we go, guys. What do you think of this?
Oh my God! Awesome.
Nice.
That's sweet. She said she's not talented. Come on, man. That's like she can look at a picture and she can redraw that like that, and there's no tracing or anything.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Size it and frame it.
Yes, I'm gonna definitely. What's going up? What's going up? Woo!
Next time, get her on camera doing it. That would be awesome to see.
Then maybe now she could put the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane in the background of that same picture. That'd be cool. And then put
Stacy, start the Headless Horseman.
on the same picture though, with Ichabod, and then on the left put the name of the title of the movie, and then frame that whole thing. That'd be cool.
That'd be sweet. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So not the history, the books. These came from books. These two, because a lot of Disney movies have come from.
I forgot who wrote the book of Sleepy Hollow.
Irving or Washington.
Yeah,
Washington Irving.
I actually read that book. I found it boring in the beginning. I'm sorry.
And Ichabod, Mr. Toad is from. This one always gets me because if you ask a person who goes to the parks and you'll say, "Have you ever read Wind in the Willows?" And unfortunately, a lot of people have not read Wind in the Willows. I think it's as classic as Winnie the Pooh, some of the older ones during that time. But it was made by written by Kenneth Graham, and this is the book here. Are we featured in here? Maybe not, because I'm getting ready to share my screen.
Wasn't there another name? Illustrated by Helen Ward.
Whenever you say this was the inspiration for Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure ride at Disneyland, they'll say, "Oh, okay, I've heard of it." But not a lot of people have. It is a British story. Let's go to.
I actually have a smaller book version of it, and it's The Wind in the Willows. But it's
the one I wanted.
It's separate stories. The one that I have, I think, is something with the pond. I don't have it with me, but they were like small little pocket books, and I had it since I was a child. And there's like 4 or 6 maybe in the series.
All right,
that's how I heard of them at first.
So this book was written in 1908, and it's from basically turn of the century England. Well, actually, it would be a little bit later than that because of the cars that were in there. But if you guys haven't read this book, I would definitely do it. It was actually part of my inspiration for the book that I wrote with little animals and clothes. So this means a lot to me personally. That is the first story, and we'll stop it here, and we'll go into the story of it. So the story of Ichabod and Mr. Toad is about a crazy toad which
has an addiction problem.
He has an addiction problem. So this is the first time that they promoted it on TV, animated, and basically Mr. Toad can't control himself. First, it's with a horse, and then it's with a car, and then at the end of it, it's an airplane. So he's if you guys aren't familiar with it, he is someone who is wealthy. They live in Toad.
He owns Toad Hall.
He owns Toad Hall, which is supposed to be like a palace, basically, for the small animals. One thing that is very interesting, they mix humans in the world with the small animals.
The mailman with Mr. Rat.
Yes. So that is pretty cool. And when
there you go, Charlie. That's cool.
Yeah, there you go. So ultimately, his craze of wanting a car, he literally is like walking around with his eyes going crazy with it. He's hopping around on the ground, and meets these weasels and a bartender named Mr. Winky, and he says he wants to buy the motor car from them. Well, little do they know, the car was stolen, and he bought stolen merchandise from them. He didn't have any money on him, so what did he give? He gave up the beloved Toad Hall, the deed to Toad Hall.
Not gonna happen, guys.
He's a cardboard box.
Yep.
So what happens? He gets arrested.
He was framed. I was framed. He says
he gets arrested, and then he's visited by the horse, which was
Zero. The horse's name is Zero.
No, it was
Zero.
Zero. I think you were saying Zero.
No, not Zero.
Zero.
Cereal.
C-I-R-I-L.
And he's visited in prison dressed as a woman.
Basically in drag.
And then they put Mr. Toad in a little baby-looking outfit. and he manages to escape, where eventually he proves his innocence. And we get to Jim on that. Yes.
So there's him looking like an old woman frog.
Yeah.
Toad. Old
Or
woman.
what Derick
Toad.
said, baby.
Toad.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and in that scene, they had the worst aiming. I mean, they hit everything except, not that I want him to get hit, but it was like the thing where the light was like their target point, and the bullets just kept hitting that, and then they'd bounce off. And then you'd see them like this with the guns on the train, which is kind of funny.
So the policemen are chasing poor Mr. Toad, trying to get him captured.
Yeah.
But it all turns out well. They actually have to trick the weasels and get their deed back. That's what they have to do. So if you guys haven't watched it, which we now probably ruined it for you,
No,
watch
more.
it to find out. There's a lot more within it, but that's kind of a summary of what it was.
It's funny how they get the deed back. You didn't talk about that.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that's like a whole sequence in itself.
Exactly. So the characters in there. Characters, you guys, anyone want to jump in and name the characters that are important to this?
We've got Toad's three buddies, McBadger,
It's
Rat. I don't remember Rat's name.
It's just
And
rat.
what?
Water rat.
Water
Rat.
Rat.
Yeah.
Name is Water Rat. That can't be right.
It's like
And
Rat.
and Mole.
Yeah.
Mole.
I like
Mole. These are his three buddies. These are the three characters that have his back, essentially.
Mole played an important part in this movie towards the end. It's the little quiet ones that you got to worry about, and then he just let out his heroic side.
Ben.
Ben right there.
Oh, I thought Ben was going to comment. I thought it was.
Not Mortal Mole.
Oh,
And
got it.
more.
So, you guys, what do you think of the story and the characters?
Let me just look at my notes.
Are we now? We're not afraid of doing spoilers here, right?
Listen, it was released in 1949.
I think
If
we're okay on
people are going to be upset that we're ruining the story,
If you haven't seen it yet, you can watch it, but we're going to talk about it right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Spoiler alert! 70 years later, spoiler alert.
The people in Europe, I don't think have gotten Disney Plus yet, right? So
What do you call an illegally parked frog?
That was Blaine 2007. Welcome, Blaine. Paper, Scissors, and Vacations. Oh my. Welcome, Laura B. Thank you for joining us, you guys.
Now I want to know what the answer is to that riddle.
Oh, Toad.
Oh, ha ha. And roll his eyes.
I love puns.
He was Toad.
All right. So, Jim, we'll start with you. What did you think of the story and the characters in this? Were they endearing, good written, well written?
yes, I loved Rat. He was my favorite. He's my favorite character in this whole segment. I love the way he talks. I love the way he looks. Look how dapper he is.
Very
I could
distinguished.
see Jim
Yes.
liking him, actually, because Jim's kind of like his persona in a way.
Not at all, but thank you. But Mole is, yeah, he's, his character. It's
Simple.
simple, but important. He's the one that was lowered down trying to get the deed out of Winky's pocket. He was the Tom Cruise in Mission
Yeah.
Impossible.
Stacy
what I mean?
said the exact same thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what it
where-
reminded me of immediately.
Where did that plush
Yeah.
come from?
And McBadger is his bookkeeper, is Mr. Toad's bookkeeper by default. At the beginning of the movie, they established that Mr. Toad is a menace to society, and he has damaged all of these things. So at the beginning of the movie, all of these people have come to Toad Hall or to McBadger's, wherever he is, demanding payment for their damaged property and stuff. And it's just too much for McBadger to handle. And he tells everybody, "You're not getting any money today." And then, he shuts the door. And I mean, it's good he's got Mr. Toad's back, but if I'm one of those villagers that had something destroyed by Mr. Toad, I'm thinking, oh yeah, you're gonna pay me today, or we're having frog legs for dinner. Do you know what I mean?
Toad
Like, I understand. It's just, I guess it's his problem is that his buddy, Mr. Toad, has a serious problem, and they love him and they want to help him, but he's a menace to society is the bottom line. And I think when I first saw that when Mr. Toad was found guilty for stealing a car, his sentence is 20 years in prison. That's insane. 20 years, and not just any prison, in a tower. They shoved him in a tower.
Chained to a ball.
For 20 years. And I thought, oh, that's excessive. But what they did, I think what the magistrate did is they knew Mr. Toad is a danger. So they took this opportunity to put him away for a long time. That's my takeaway anyway. I believe that's what they did. I got a screenshot of I don't know if this is the right one, but let me see.
Guilty.
I don't know if you can read this. You can't. I'll read it for you. Labeled a dangerous element in our society, J. Thaddeus Toad today began a term of 20 years in the highest, most guarded tower of Old Billingsgate Gaol. The conviction came as no surprise to our readers who have been following the case. The theft of the red motor car, though an incident in itself, could lead to untold disaster if allowed to go unpunished. Now, nobody in 1949 was able to pause this and read that, but I can right now. So I'm saying that they this is kind of explaining, oh yeah, 20 years is excessive for stealing a car and even selling stolen cars, but they wanted Toad off the they wanted him away for a while.
When I said that you are like Rat, he talks like you talk, like you use certain words. He sounds educated and just dapper and everything, and that's proper. So that's why
British.
He's not British. I mean, Jim's not British.
I'm not British.
No, but the talking is kind of like on a British level.
Indeed. No, I don't.
Maybe it's how you work. It's how you work your eyebrows, I think.
Maybe.
There you go. Very British. Very
Yes.
water rat.
I look like a British rat. Thanks, guys.
Water rat.
I look like a British water rat.
The key word there is British. British sophistication. Way up here.
Yep. Dan's in here. He's British.
If we haven't already, welcome AJC Magic TV. Also, congratulations on 1,000. I believe it was you that just hit 1,000. Keystone 76, welcome.
Blaine 2007. I don't think we said hello. Disney Dan.
Disney Dan, welcome. Disney Dan. Brandy and Dave, it's Brand who's here. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And so we are talking about the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. We are talking about the first featurette within it, which was Mr. Toad's. I was going to say Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure. But what do you think about it, Charlie? Storyline, characters, what was your thoughts?
I liked the storyline. It was a little bit surprising to me because before I rewatched it, I was under the impression that it followed the ride more. And as Greg had mentioned in another stream at one point, the ending is totally different than what the ride ending is. So that's one point. As to the characters, I really, really like the characters. The rat and the mole, I can picture those guys being the the collectors for the poor in like a Scrooge movie. They come to the door and say, "Hey guys, you want to give to the poor?" And Scrooge kicks them out and says, "Bugger off," and all that stuff. But I find them very endearing. You like to look at them as animated characters. You're like, "Oh, those guys look cool." The Badger kind of reminded me of Friar Tuck from Robin Hood, actually, for some reason. So the way he was drawn, I think.
Yeah, I can see that.
What about Mr. Toad? Do you like Mr. Toad?
In general, I don't like careless people who don't have any courtesy for others. So
it's not his fault he had an addiction.
Well, he was out there with a crazy horse, running over things and just damaging people. He's having fun without any care for other people's property. I had an issue with that, but he's not one of my favorite characters.
Can I mention something? Can I step in for a second?
Yeah.
I've got a shot. When we first see Mr. Toad, we're told that he now has a mania. When he gets a bug for something, they call it a mania in the story.
Yeah.
And when we first are introduced to him, we're told he has a mania for this gypsy cart, this horse-drawn gypsy cart. And we see him crashing into things in this gypsy cart. And this is the rear end of his horse, Cyril. I don't have a picture of him. But, okay, here. All right, getting to the essence of Mr. Toad here. Mr. Toad can talk. Cyril, his horse, can talk. Yet, Mr. Toad wants to go faster, so he whips Cyril multiple times. What I'm saying is, why don't you just ask him if he can go faster before you start beating him? You know what I mean? I'm saying Mr. Toad is awful.
Well,
He's a bad person.
In his defense, Cyril doesn't seem to mind, man. Some people like to
I guess you're right. That is a messed up
Cyril's probably
relationship.
turning around saying, "That's all you got, buddy. It's all you got." I don't know.
Maybe that's why he came back into the tower after Toad had been arrested and made him dress like a woman.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, addict couldn't be part of Disney's vocabulary, right? So they had to make up another word. Mania. Okay, let's do it. Mania. You can't be addicts, right?
Yeah, I also found it funny. Because we were watching it yesterday, and I told Derick a bunch of like little side notes that I had. And when he got the addiction of motor cars, he's at the tailpipe of the car sniffing the exhaust from the tailpipe. And I'm just thinking, oh, that's something to teach your children. I mean, back in the day, they didn't think about that, but
Yes, he did the same thing on the train. See this exhaust? He did the same thing to that too.
he's really happy.
He is sick. He's a sick Toad.
One other character that comes to mind, Mr. Winky. Whenever I hear Mr. Winky, it just reminds me of Ace Ventura. I'm just sorry.
Yeah,
Found Mr. Winky. Enough said. Okay, you can go on.
Does he have a mustache on his head?
He's all
He-
At the top of his head?
He does, and at one point he twirls the mustache under his nose, and then he does the same thing to the mustache on his head. He's got at least 4 mustaches on his face.
I remember him in the ride. When I saw him, he's the one with his arms up, and the beer bottles are twisting around as his body's going down when you drive by it. Do you remember that?
Yep. Exactly.
I totally forgot about him until I saw him in the movie. I was like, oh, that's where they got that from. That ride's really cool. It really makes you feel like you're in the movie in a way.
It does.
Can you guys explain something to me? And maybe I missed this. The reason Mr. Toad got into trouble is because he signed over Toad Hall. He was going to trade Toad Hall for a motor car, correct?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Stolen too.
Now, later on in the story, McBadger comes into Rat and Mole and says, I saw Mr. Winky in Toad Hall with all the weasels. We've got to get the deed back to prove Mr. Toad's innocence. But isn't Mr. Winky the rightful owner of Toad Hall now? What am I missing?
He's trying to take it back from Mr. Winky because he feels like he was side-blinded, like he was lied to, basically, and it was stolen goods.
Yes, which he was. However, Mr. Toad, he was going to sign over Toad Hall to Mr. Winky, and he would have had his motor car. Mr. Winky would have had Toad Hall, and then, like you were just saying, Mr. Winky in court became a hostile witness, by the way, and lied and said he tried to sell me a stolen car.
Under oath.
That doesn't change the fact that Mr. Winky owns Toad Hall. Am I missing something? And they want to steal the deed back from the guy that lawfully and rightfully owns Toad Hall. Am I missing something?
I actually never even thought about
by
that.
giving him a stolen car, though. The whole point is that he
lied about it.
framed Mr. Toad.
Yeah.
And gave him stolen goods, and he made Mr. Toad sign over the deed.
Oh, I get what you're saying is the car was stolen, so it was just reversed.
Mhm.
Mr. Winky was selling the stolen car to Mr. Toad. You're right. That's it, isn't it?
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And then Mr.
Thank
Winky
you.
announced that they had the deed, and then also.
Mr. Winky's just a bad person. He doesn't deserve Toad Hall to begin with.
And they had also the judge. They didn't believe that they would trade Toad Hall for a stolen car.
Yeah.
So they didn't.
Yes. By the way, you just said Mr. Winky's a bad person. Here he is trying to straight up murder Mole. He's swinging a sword at Mole.
Looks like
And Mr. Toad's in prison for 20 years for stealing a car.
Right? He needs to be in asylum.
Also, and all of those weasels too. Where is it? This is what they were throwing at our favorite characters. That's a mace. They were trying to straight up murder these characters. They were bad. Everybody's bad. Everybody except Rat is bad. Rat and Mole.
40s.
Welcome, Noah, the Disney World fan 16. Thanks for joining us. All right, Ben, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm coming at it from a fan who might be just a casual fan of the movie and know the movie more from the Disneyland attraction as opposed to the actual film, which is probably about 95% of the people that ride that attraction. It's a very interesting take on how they take one little portion of the film and make the ride out of it, but then they sprinkle all these characters throughout the attraction. That's really cool. Back to the film, though. The use of colors on Toad's eyes that show when he's going through his mania of becoming enraptured over this motor car. The colors are extremely psychedelic and way ahead of their time for the 1940s. I don't know if anyone actually remembers that particular scene of seeing his eyes go all kind of buggy with pinks and reds. It was very psychedelic.
It reminded me of the Jungle Book with Ka.
Yeah.
The snake hypnotizing.
Hypnotizing.
Which came first, Ben? Jungle Book or
this one?
This one came first before Jungle Book
was released in 1967.
Okay, so they just must have used it from, maybe they got that idea from Mr. Toad.
There are a lot of recycled gags and scenes and bits from Disney films from one to the other. If you look at the couple in Sleeping Beauty dancing as Aurora's dress is changing from pink to blue, the movements of the dance there are very similar to the movements of Belle and the Beast at the very end of Beauty and the Beast. And that's only one instance. There's a lot of
with the eyes. I really like that.
Yeah.
Cinderella also. Cinderella was Sleeping Beauty, and then you brought in Beauty and the Beast also.
Yep. Yeah. The whole look of the Mr. Toad and Ichabod and all that. It's a nice classic look for animation at that time, but it's a far cry of the films that were produced 10 years before, when Walt insisted on high quality animation. Not that the animation wasn't high quality in the 1949 movie, but the characters and colors were a lot flatter and a lot less detailed. Pinocchio is still highly regarded as one of the most animated treasures ever produced in cinema. Just the face of Jiminy Cricket has about 35 different colors in it. And when you look at that and compare it to the look of Mr. Toad, far different look for a movie.
Jiminy Cricket wasn't just green?
No, there was a lot of colors in there.
Really? Wow,
Yeah.
I got to look at that.
Speaking of the animation,
Yeah.
when I was watching this, especially the part in Toad Hall where they're trying to get the deed back,
Yeah.
it reminded me an awful lot of Looney Tunes. And I didn't know if it was inspired by Looney Tunes or vice versa. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, going
with
back
all-
and forth, and this one grabs it from that one. This
Very
one
much so, yes. Yeah, and all the weapons and Rat gets hit on the head with a club, and his eyes go crossed or whatever happens. Just a lot of slapstick silliness, which I wasn't expecting, but it reminded me a lot. And I didn't know if our resident Disney historian was familiar with whether it was inspired or it had inspired like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, for example. I don't know, but that's what it reminded me of.
I don't know if one inspired the other, but a lot of slapstick humor was very common in animation at that time.
Did a lot of people from Looney Tunes come over to Disney Animation? Maybe
no, it's actually it was in reverse. A lot of people left Disney to go to Warner Brothers.
Really?
Carl Stalling, for one, who was a brilliant musician and music arranger, who used to work at the Disney Studios, left Disney to go to Warner Brothers to establish the sound of Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes, and quite successful career. He worked at Warner Brothers for 22 years and established a very unique sound for the soundtracks to the Warner Brothers cartoon catalog. As far as the animators go, there was an actual revolving door at the Disney studio at that time because of the whole labor movement and unionization and all that. But I already covered that.
Now, just one more thing. You guys had mentioned the ride a bit, and it's quite different from this movie that we're talking about. The ride, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disneyland. It does not follow the story of this movie.
Not at all.
And there are lots of changes. Like, this is the courtroom scene. There's the judge, and this is the prosecuting attorney. In the ride, however, this guy is the judge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, at the end of the ride, Mr. Toad gets hit by a train, dies, and goes to what they call
The bad place.
the Inferno or something. Don't they call it the Inferno room or something?
Purgatory.
Yeah. But anyway, does anybody know why it did not follow the film and why these changes were made? Why is it so different?
I've always why they
It was
that.
different from Walt Disney World to Disneyland too. Disneyland ending is unique to that part.
Yeah.
Well, the ride itself had two different tracks in Walt Disney World as opposed to the one track in Disneyland. But I just wondered, I was just interested, like, why would they? I mean, this is the more villainous character here, so it makes sense to me, I suppose, that they would make him the judge, and then later
So
we
why did
see
they
him
kill
again.
him? Why did they kill him in the ride?
I don't know.
I don't
That's
know.
kind of a drastic step to take when the movie has nothing to do with it, but it's like, okay, also let's just kill him. You know?
You're right,
It's
Rob.
fair.
Sorry, Charlie. Rob was right. I'm going to give him one of these. That's for you, Rob.
I don't know if Toad is.
No.
I don't know if Toad is ungrateful or he's just so caught up in his addictions that he doesn't realize what he's doing. But even in the end, after they go through all the trouble of getting the deed and getting Toad Hall back, then he finds planes and then he knocks over a statue at the end and his friends are on the ground.
Yes, he's horrible. He's
starts-
horrible.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe the statue he knocks over is in Trafalgar Square.
Probably, yeah.
Starts the whole thing all over again. So it's like they went through all that trouble for nothing to help him.
Yep.
So,
He did not learn a thing.
or he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Not only that, when he was in jail, when we see him sulking in his jail cell, as soon as Cyril comes to help rescue him, he is all of that, all the remorse, all of that is gone immediately. I think that's why in the ride he goes to hell, because we all know he's horrible. He's horrible.
To teach a lesson.
Well, Derick made a good point. He said his leg is so small it could just come right out of the thing
ring.
that was holding it,
The
the
ball and
on.
chain.
And I noticed that he had the ball and chain on him. And then when Cyril came in, the ball wasn't there. I said, "Where's the ball and chain, Derick?" I said, "It's not even showing anymore." So it's like it came off, and then all of a sudden it's back on again. I'm
So,
like,
so it was just it was whatchamacallit?
it's an editing.
Consistency issue.
Oh, continuity.
Continuity. There you go.
Yeah, I
Yep.
saw the same thing when I was getting the screen capture of the when he was holding the whip. In the shot just before this, he has no whip.
He carries one with him.
Yes, and it immediately appears. He's like Green Lantern.
We'll get to that kind of thing in Ichabod also. Did we want to start talking about Ichabod?
Well, let's do it about we didn't.
Oh,
share our thoughts.
I thought we've been saying it this whole time.
Nope. So, what did you think about the story and the characters?
I thought it was horrendous. No. I think there's life lessons to learn from it, really. Like, choose your friends wisely, because obviously he chose a horse to be his friend that's as reckless as he is.
I like the horse better, by the way.
Maybe trust your friends more, because his friends were the ones that were trying to help him. And I mean, not to make light of addiction, because it's in real life and everything. But he had an addiction to objects or
Possessions.
possessions and materialistic things. So he couldn't stop himself from. It's almost like you can't stop yourself from buying things all the time. When you have money, it burns a hole in your pocket. So he wanted the next best thing, and he would give up anything to have it, even Toad Hall. So I think there's some lessons in there to learn. But it's a fun movie. It's a fun classic. I think that's my first time actually seeing the whole Mr. Toad cartoon in its entirety without actually going to sleep to listening to the movie.
I will say I love the song "Merrily, Merrily, Merrily."
Oh, yeah.
Off to Nowhere in particular.
Yeah, I love that from the ride too.
Favorite Disney songs. I'll be honest. Mr. Toad is probably
That
my
was brought to you
least.
by D&G Explorers.
That is, even though I have Mr. Toad's merchandise and I love the ride,
Yeah.
to me, he's a highly annoying character. I like the characters better. Mole is actually my favorite character.
I like Mole.
He's just so simple. You just want to cuddle him. But a lot of kids' stories, they always say, like, when you write them, don't write a character too goody-goody, because kids won't be interested in it. So if you look at a lot of the children's characters, Stuart Little, because I read a lot of children's books to kind of see how I wanted to write my book. Ralph and the Motorcycle, they're like punks. I'm thinking, I don't want my kids to be reading children or kids that are brats, but that's really was like the topic. I mean, I think someone like Winnie the Pooh is something different to it, but that's kind of how the story was written, with Toad being that character, which is that annoying character which does things that you shouldn't be doing. But that's always been one of my favorite characters. I love the time period. I love that era with the cars coming in, the way the village looked. I like the animated feature quite a bit. The characters are good. I always relate it to book because I have another one that is actually better. Inga Moore did the animation for it. Inga Moore is an incredible artist.
So the illustrations.
Yeah, she's an illustrator. But this is one that she did for the Secret Garden, and so she does like a lot of these artwork paint ones, and she did one for The Wind in the Willows, and I think it's a beautiful book that it really brings out the story in it. So I've always loved that story just in general because it is different from the animated feature. There's a lot more to it. There's other little stories, but I would probably say it's one of my favorite Disney, the featurettes combined, Ichabod and Mr. Toad. It's one of my favorite Disney ones.
Well, I was going to ask a question. Maybe people don't remember what was talked about earlier, but I'll just say it. What other movie was Rat and Mole in together?
Mickey's Christmas Carol.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like that's probably where I saw it from them.
Yep.
They were the ones you had mentioned.
And then Derick says, they are. I was like, oh, you ruined it. I was going to ask the question. But I asked it anyway. So, yeah, they're in that one. That one's a good one, too. So,
thank you, Randy. We also have joining us Orange Cone Vlog. He said they are working on a 48-hour week.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you for watching our show while you work.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So, do you give thumbs up or thumbs down to Mr. Toad?
Oh, big thumbs up.
I mean,
I give Mr. Toad a hard time, but I like it.
It's a great segment.
Big.
Yeah, I like it too. Yeah.
But we'll move on to Ichabod Crane with Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod and the Headless Horseman.
All right. Do you guys want to see Stacy's latest?
Yes.
Let's do this while we're upstairs. All right, guys. Here we go. It's not colored.
Oh my gosh, she did the heavy one.
Nice.
Very quick or both something. I don't know why she's not doing that. She'll be doing that.
You see her at Pictionary. She's like.
Stacy, we might need to talk.
So, Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, that's one of my favorites during Halloween. I almost said Christmas. During Halloween time, because I actually grew up with that. There was a special that Jim knows about called Disney's Halloween Treat, and that's where he saw Chernabog from Fantasia on.
It's not on Disney Plus. On
Ball Mountain. Yeah, I wish they did have it on Disney Plus, but we have the half-hour version and the hour-and-a-half version on DVD that I take from my mom's VHS is on the DVD, so I have that to treasure. But I grew up with Ichabod in the Headless Horseman cartoon, and I think it's a beautifully made movie or short. Just the colors and the art and everything.
I think it's a fun story.
Yeah.
So where did the story come from? So let's look at where it did. It came from. Just want to make sure we were on there. It came from the a short stories from Washington Irving. It was called the Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon Gent. I don't know if that's gentleman, but that's interesting. And it was written in 1820. It was published in 1820. And the story of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow is based on a place in New York, and it was 1790. The story is set in 1790 in the countryside around the Dutch settlement of Tarrytown, historical Tarrytown, New York, in a secluded glen known as Sleepy Hollow. So that was where the theming came from it. Let me get out of here. But so I think there's probably going to be more discussion on this. So Jim, we'll go through. Do we want to talk? Who wants to talk about the story of it? And so we're not saying the same thing. Who would like to do that? The story plot of it.
Well, just go ahead and do it.
All right.
Well, I was gonna say mortal mole man, but you can add into it.
Okay.
I've already talked about some of it.
Well, just talk about basically the summary of the movie. Ichabod, Mr. Toad.
So, well,
Ichabod.
it starts out with Ichabod walking down a dirt road, reading his books, and he's kind of like a stranger to the townsfolk because nobody has seen him before. Apparently, I guess he was. They don't talk about it, but he was hired to work in the schoolhouse with all the children, and they find him really odd.
Very tall.
Yeah,
very skinny.
His nose is like elongated, like a beak. He kind of reminds me of Belle, not with the nose, but that his face is always in a book reading.
Oh.
So they find
but
that.
You know, it's funny.
They find that odd.
He liked to. He didn't really read. The
oh my
books.
God!
He was too busy smelling them like Greg.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I like the smell of old books, but I'm not like diving my head into it and sniffing it.
And the books in 1790 smelled a whole lot better than they do now.
Wow, whatever.
By the way, this we know all this about Ichabod Crane not because the characters are talking. There's only narration, and the narration is done by Bing Crosby.
Exactly.
So the story is progressing through narration and through song. It's a musical.
I agree, but then I disagree with you because I was thinking.
Well, you can do that, but you'd be wrong.
Okay, well, they weren't talking, but actually, he was talking. Brom Bones was actually singing.
No, that was Bing Crosby.
But it was his voice. You could see Brom Bones' mouth moving to the words that he was singing. So it was supposed to be
like when he was
Bing
telling
Crosby
the story.
doing the voice of Brom Bones singing.
That's true. Yes.
So he did actually talk. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I saw that. So, but go ahead and add.
Okay, so he falls in love at first sight, with a 18-year-old girl who looks surprisingly like. There's a picture of her.
You're only
no, that's not her. That's not her. This is her.
There it is. 18 based off the book. They don't give her age.
Yeah, in
on
the book
cartoon.
it says she's 18. Her name is Katrina Van Tassel. Is that her name, guys? And correct me if I'm wrong.
Van Tassel, I think.
Van Tassel, yeah. And she looks like a really.
Looks like an early version of Cinderella.
Yeah, which came out a year after this, and so he falls in love with her. Oops, I didn't put myself on that. He falls in love with her, and he's trying to win her over, but there is someone else. Jim, I'm sure you have a picture of that. It is Bron Bones.
Oh, sorry.
Handsome guy right there.
I hit the wrong button. There it is.
There it is.
That's an early rendition of Gaston. I think we all agreed on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And so it now becomes a competition of who is going to get this young, pretty lady, because not only is she pretty, her father is very old in age, but he has a big farm, has a lot of money.
Yes.
Referred to the corn as gold. What was the other thing? He was seeing dollar signs, like heads of lettuce. He saw the dollar signs on it.
Which is why I don't agree with you when you say that he fell in love.
He fell in love with the thought of.
He did not fall in love with Katrina. He fell in love with the thought of, oh, if I'm with Katrina, I'm going to have all this money and have a good lifestyle.
Correct.
Which is why I'm going to go into something else in a little bit.
So we'll get more into that. But then it becomes a showdown of whenever there is a contest between the two, Ichabod wins and makes Bones, Mr. Bones, Bron Bones, makes him look bad. So he tries to tell him a story about the Headless Horseman and to beware. So at the end of the movie, Ichabod, after 12 o'clock, which is known as the witching hour, after 12 o'clock midnight, he has to go back to his place and cross through Sleepy Hollow.
It's like one of the best parts of the movie.
Where he encounters the Headless Horseman.
That and the theme is the best part.
Yes. So at the end of the movie, yeah. Ichabod vanishes. You no longer see him, and they don't know if it's the legend of Ichabod and Legend of the Headless Horseman, or he ran away somewhere. So that's kind of the summary of the story. Is that kind of where you would say? Any guys, you want to add anything else on the storyline? But I think that's basically
I want to hear what they have to say.
All right.
That was a leaping kitty.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. So we're going to go to you. What did you feel about the story and the characters?
I want Greg, before the stream, he had shared something that he had a revelation after watching it again. So I'm kind of interested. I want Greg to say what he was going to say, because we had this, I think I had the same revelation when I rewatched this week. We both saw it as kids, but I'm going to let Greg I want to hear what he has to say, because we didn't specify.
So when I was watching it as a child, I always thought that Ichabod Crane was the victim, that he was the one that he was after the girl and everything, and that Brom Bones was the bad one, and also the Headless Horseman. And I always thought, was he actually the Headless Horseman? But I think we pretty much know that he was the Headless Horseman.
What?
To get back at Ichabod. But so my whole theory is that Ichabod is not the victim, that Brom Bones is the victim, because he actually does love Katrina, and Ichabod only wants her for her money and everything. So then Bones uses his imagination and bulkiness and everything, his strength, to scare Ichabod away so that he could get the person that he actually loves. Because I think he loved Katrina and not Ichabod. Ichabod did not love Katrina. So I think Brom Bones was the victim.
I had the same experience. I saw this as a kid. I had not seen Mr. Toad as a kid, so I didn't know what I was in for when I watched it this week. But I had seen this when I was a kid, and I felt the same way. I thought, this is a story written about a weakling who was bullied out of town, and he did not end up getting the girl he loved, and the bully did. And it saddened me. I felt horrible for Ichabod Crane, and for years. But now, having rewatched this twice this week, I realize through the narration and also just the story, the animation, no, Ichabod, he was a gold digger. He was only interested really in money and food. This is him holding the gate open for this lady with all the pies, but he only did it to steal a pie.
Yeah.
He stole one of these pies
that he had hidden in a book somehow.
Yes. So rewatching this, it kind of there was a bit of a weight lifted off of me because I watched the story again, of course, and as we know, Ichabod is scared off by the Headless Horseman, who is Brom Bones. By the way, I thought it was Brown Bones. I thought that's what they kept saying. His name was Brown Bones, but that's not it at all. It's Brom. Anyway, I was so happy that the right guy ended up with Katrina, because he truly did love her, and he wasn't a bully. The narration, Bing Crosby says, he was a prankster, but it wasn't malicious. That's what he says. He was fun loving, like Mr. Toad, but less reckless. He was more of a prankster. So he wanted to get rid of Ichabod. He knew something was up with this guy. He wasn't the chivalrous character that he portrayed himself to be. So he saw his opening. He found out he was superstitious, and he went on, spun that yarn about the headless horseman, and he was able to scare him off. Yeah, I was so happy at the end of it after watching it this time. Yeah, Greg, same thing with me.
AGC Magic TV said that where is it? Gaston is the modern day Brom, but Gaston was an actual villain. Brom Bones was not a villain.
Yes,
in our minds anyway, I think so.
Right, there's just a resemblance.
Yeah,
But Pam's fan brought up a good point. Brom didn't love Katrina. He was upset that someone not as handsome was going to end up with the best-looking girl.
but how do you know he didn't love her? I think he really did love her, because when the door was closed and he was in the house with Katrina, he was like trying everything to look through the window and get to her, and the poor guy was
Basically stalked her.
no. The poor guy was treated like garbage. I mean, Ichabod was walking away, then the gate closes, and then poor Brom Bones trips over it and has something smack him on his head, and he's like, loony for a little bit and everything. I think he was a victim. What do you think, Charlie and Ben?
No, I will.
There are times throughout the story that the narrator is saying that the girl was enjoying having them play against each other, so whenever she was dancing with Ichabod, she'd be looking over at Brom, showing interest as well. So I think she was a little bit of a player herself. She's like, hey, I'm gonna work these guys, against each other, just like well, I guess that was the what people thought, I guess, what single women did back then, I guess, having all the quarters, work them against each other, maybe get as much as she can out of them. I don't know.
Single ladies in 1790.
Ben, what did you think?
I agree. I think Brom Bones was the victim. Poor guy. He was in town the whole time, and then Ichabod comes in and starts getting all the attention. For what reason? Is that really explained? I mean, is he that attractive? They find him.
It was his voice. You see all those people. Did you see those three ladies that are swooning over him during the?
Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Come on, you have his voice.
Yeah,
And plus, he was a teacher, right? He was a teacher, and he was hooking up with all these ladies through the children, all these single mothers, right?
Yeah.
You love their children, they're all over you. So
Yeah, the only truth.
and he eats their food, he loves their children. He gets. I don't know. I think that was those selling points.
There was no. While it's on my mind, there was another voice that they had in the movies besides Bing Crosby. And Greg, what was it when they were dancing?
Oh my gosh! I thought you meant the one that says that some don't even wear their skin. You're talking about the heavyset lady that he basically objectifies. Poor thing, like
That's right.
stereotypes the poor thing. You just want me to laugh her
because you did it perfect. How did she do it?
I don't know if I can even do it right now. She was like,
non-stop. Every time she did.
And then he threw the poor thing in the closet. And then she comes out the bottom part of it and pulls her hair up, and then runs after him, after Brom Bones. It was so horrible. Brom Bones looked at her and thought, well, she's not attractive. She'll go with Ichabod Crane. And then he's walking around with her as they're dancing. So.
That's the funniest part, I think, probably. How she clings to Brom is so funny.
Yeah, and in the credits it says clucking woman.
Now, I'm interested in Charlie's take on why he thinks the horseman was framed.
The horseman was very, very misunderstood. I took this last couple of weeks interviewing many, well, not many, the survivors of Sleepy Hollow from the 40s, I guess. Well, the ones that were left, I guess, run with it. I don't know. Anyways, so some of the feedback I got. Okay, guys, you gotta go with this because this is what I was told. Okay, the horseman was just misunderstood. You know, he was he would stay up late at night. Let me paint the picture, okay? His name was actually Ted Horseman. He was a little kid. He had an extraordinarily small head, and you know how cruel kids are.
Was his full name was his full name Tedless?
Les was his middle name. Horseman. All right. But you know how cool kids are, okay? He had a small head. All of a sudden, next thing you know, he's the headless horseman. You know, when he becomes the janitor of the town.
Tedless was the headless horseman.
Exactly, man.
Yes.
I'm telling you, this is what I was told. And he becomes the janitor of the town. He stays up late. He doesn't want to bother anybody. So at night, you know, after midnight, he comes out. He sweeps all the streets. He sweeps all the bridges. He keeps the town nice and clean. Okay? So imagine, if you will, he just spent all night sweeping off that covered bridge, making it look pristine, okay? And along comes this jerk on a muddy horse about to drop down through that bridge. And he's like, what the heck you doing, man? I just cleaned that bridge. Disrespect. So he had to go show him a lesson. You know, he went and tried to keep him off the bridge. That's all he was doing. He's trying to keep him off the bridge. You re-look at the footage, and you'll see all he was trying to do. He didn't even come until he was approaching that bridge. He's like, hey, man, show some respect. I just swept that bridge. All right?
But he's the one that smashed a jack-o'-lantern there, and he just left it. So I don't know how good he was at his job.
His anger got the best of him. I have to say that.
Yeah.
His anger got the best of him. Now, some other feedback I got, all right? You got to think. Now this is along another storyline. This is not going with the childhood that was the child that was bullied and made fun of. But this story I found interesting because he said the townsfolk. Okay, he's a headless horseman, and the only means he has of seeing and talking or whatever is by using a jack-o'-lantern head for his head. Okay, it's a magical head, whatever. And all these people in the town come fall. They all grab all his heads and they all start carving them into jack-o'-lanterns, and that's the only thing he can use for a head. Okay, so I got pretty pissed off about that too. So he was just trying to get him to stop carving up all his head. They're a town of jerks. All right. Now I don't really like that one, but that's what I was told. Now, the last story I came upon. Okay, this old lady told me. Okay, the horseman. She said the horseman was actually the former teacher, and Ichabod stole his job. Okay, the town got rid of him. They replaced him because he was getting too old, and he smelled of pumpkin spice. Man,
what's wrong with that?
Discrimination. Exactly. What's wrong with that? Every pumpkin spice has its place in society. Jim, you love pumpkin spice. You have not tried anything. Exactly. You haven't eaten anything of pumpkin spice that you haven't liked yet, right?
Everything.
I know. So it's discrimination. So I stand by my statement. The headless horseman was framed. Tedless horseman was framed. Do you agree?
You make
I agree.
very interesting points.
Oh, thank you. I tried.
Well, you brought up the pumpkin, and then when I think I was telling Jim before when he brought up that Mr. Toad had a whip, but then before he didn't have a whip, the Headless Horseman didn't always have the pumpkin in his hand. So I'd like to know where he was hiding that pumpkin at, and then all of a sudden at the end he throws a pumpkin that's on fire, mind you. So between that 5-second time frame, how did he get the pumpkin, light it up, and then throw the thing?
Good question. Good question. It was probably full of kerosene too. Like, how did that happen? How did it not spill? How is he not himself on fire?
That's right. And did anybody else notice the early scenes of Ichabod ride when he first rides his horse? That horse looks like a very anorexic Eeyore. No one else noticed that? It doesn't really look like it on that picture that Jim has.
Yeah.
But the earlier picture, man, you look at his head, it looks just like Eeyore.
Well, Brom Bones' horse had red nostrils and red eyes. So where did those come from? The demonic horse or something? I don't know.
Too much Tabasco.
I mean, it's a cartoon. You go with it. But now knowing that, seeing it when we were little, and then now seeing it now, you just notice things and you make jokes about it and stuff. But it's pretty funny and cool that Jim and I had the same take, that it was reversed. Now Brom Bones is the victim and not Ichabod Crane. So I think Ichabod was a punk in the end.
I think I would say that they were both kind of jerky. You know, I didn't like really both of them. As you know, you can tell Ichabod kind of reminded me of Yogi Bear. He's always trying to steal everybody's food, and
yeah, he deserves 20 years in prison.
he had exactly, and he had absolutely no problem picking up women. You know, he had no problem getting with the ladies, and then Brom was kind of jerky. You know, I don't like people who.
I don't know, Charlie. Watch it again. Watch it again in the mindset that Ichabod is a gold digger. Brom Bones is actually a good guy. He had one moment. He had one bad moment, and that was during the dance, the party at the end, when the short woman gave him the eye, and he was like, "Oh no!" Whatever he did, that wasn't his best moment. But everything else, he's a pretty good guy. I mean, he feeds his horse and the dogs the ale out of the barrel, and other than that not shining moment, he's pretty good guy.
All the other guys of dropping their presents, right? Because they were all lined up to give the lady gifts, and then he gives them the tough Brom eye, and they all drop their gifts and they take off, and then he was about to claim them as his gifts. That's not good either, right? Huh?
But those guys were criminals, so they deserved it.
Oh, okay, that's true.
No. Face again that he just did. No, not that one. Oh no!
Wait. Oh no!
And the very end, though, when they had the wedding, you could tell Katrina really loved Brom Bones, and then Brom Bones was just kind of like taken back because the way that she kissed him. You could
but right
there.
Right before that, I think he had a very lovey-dovey look on his face as well.
Yeah,
I think so.
And then she just
call it up. I'm gonna open up a new tab.
We didn't officially welcome Juan Rodriguez.
Yes,
Juan.
So welcome, you guys. Well, one interesting fact I was reading,
Halloween Magic one, yes,
in Wikipedia, whatever it's called. They were saying that obviously an animated feature is going to be different, but they were saying the scene towards the end where Brom Bones is looking through the window and Ichabod's inside the house, that actually at that moment, Katrina turned down, like basically said, "I'm not interested in you," to Ichabod. In the animated feature, it doesn't show that. So they didn't show that. That was a moment they said at that time when it happened in the story. And then at the end of the story, that when they commented on what happened to Ichabod, she kind of gave a knowing smirk is what she would do. So
he was the headless horseman.
So intentionally in the written book, it was pretty much Brom Bones who was the headless horseman, and she was playing into it because at that point she was trying to get him away from her.
So she knew about the whole thing.
Yes.
Wow.
She
was in on it.
That's what they made it in there.
Are we sure that Katrina wasn't the headless horseman?
No, we're not.
That's right. You never, because I was trying to figure out clues when Brom Bones showed up on the black horse. I was thinking, is this the same black horse?
Yeah,
But it wasn't, because
it was.
well, I thought I saw white on the mane, unless it was like a armor kind of thing on it. The Brom Bones horse at the beginning it was just a full black head. Jim?
Do you see my screen? Do you see my shared screen?
Hold on, let me put you on there.
No, the other one.
Oh, where are you? Where is it? Oh, there it is. There you go.
There. That's at the end, and they're both lovingly looking at each other.
Yeah. So you knew
Yeah,
that they were
The
together.
the right couple. That
It's
and then
No, oh my gosh. She's wearing like a bustier type of thing with a dress that expands the bottom. You know, it has the metal thing that, and then you put
She looks like she's wearing Mr. Todd's chain.
if
Well,
she's the headless horseman, maybe that's where she keeps the pumpkins.
They just got married, but they're each other's ball and chain. They're together.
Are we sure that's not the little chunky lady from the dance and she's just wearing like a Katrina mask?
He's
No.
underneath.
He had a different look on his face.
A little bit, yeah.
That is definitely a bustle.
Yes, I would say one of the best scenes in this movie, in terms of anticipation, is when he's walking through Sleepy Hollow, and they show his face, they show the woods, they show just the movement of it. That is one of the great animated scenes of it.
Really quick, Juan Rodriguez said, "I'm still angry that everything is on Disney Plus, like the 1920 black and white short where Mickey goes to the haunted house. Where is it?" Okay, I was thinking of the Lonely Ghost?
Lonesome Ghost.
The what?
Lonesome Ghost.
Lonesome
That was color. So I know which one you're talking about. They don't have that on Disney Plus. They do have it on Disney's Halloween Treat, I think, which is not on Disney Plus either. But you could probably see it on YouTube.
Well, the thing about Disney Plus, and that is a lot of people don't understand, Disney is most likely keeping back some of the stuff to load up as the streaming service ages. That way they don't throw everything up there from the very, very beginning. There are several movies from the 60s and 70s that are not part of the catalog right now. So
Yeah.
probably see that in the future. They have to keep that fresh.
What are you doing?
Oh, wow. Our cat just jumped up. So I actually have a complete list, supposedly, if you would like to hear it, a complete list of over 600 titles.
No, I don't want to hear that.
Alphabetical order.
No.
That's on Disney Plus.
Well, they went over that when it was announced. They were looking through it and seeing
This
what's coming up.
whole list.
We're not going through 600 titles.
But it's on Facebook. I can at least send it to you guys separately after the show if you want, so you can look at it and have a list, kind of like a TV guide type of thing, until they update it later on. Jim's looking at me like, "Are you serious?" 600?
So what did you guys like? Did you like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, or did you like?
Wait, is Jim frozen?
What?
Jim, you're frozen.
Am I?
Yeah.
I thought
Frozen.
you were looking like that just to be funny.
There we go.
There he is.
Am I frozen now?
No.
No,
Okay,
you're good.
good. Maybe
But
it's
you're-
probably because I'm sharing the screen.
You're in American mode. So that didn't actually. Well, they said that they think that happened,
7
Yeah.
kids.
and all those kids have the same nose, and the baby looks like an old woman. I noticed that.
It does.
They put her in a high chair. That's just wrong. Wow.
You know what? I didn't know that because they did say a
At the
widower
end,
or a widow.
they said some people think that he went with this person, or some people think that he disappeared.
Yeah,
and was
and-
never seen again.
I didn't realize they all do have his nose.
Well,
But maybe she does too. I don't know. Can't see her.
Juan, I will text you that list. Share everybody my voice of over 600 shows on Disney Plus.
So how did you like this one compared of the two? Which one did you like better?
I like probably Ichabod better,
Yeah, I do too.
just because again, it was memories from my childhood. Just seeing that, we saw that movie every Halloween, and it was fun. It was good to see the entire story again, which I had saw very rarely. I think I had seen it back then, but I don't think I'd seen it as often. I always concentrated on the end part. I'm not sure. Was it like a totally separate short, maybe of the last 10 minutes of did they chop that anyway? Because I don't remember.
You're probably thinking of the Halloween treat special because they do chop it, or they start it from when he's in the forest, and then after that,
Okay.
they kind of broke it up a little bit just to make it for Halloween, because that's probably what you were watching.
Well, they did after its original release. They've shown them separately, and when they showed them separately, they had them at different lengths. And then in '92, I think, is when they brought them back together. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was in 1992 that they released it as Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But there were scenes that were cut out from both of them. I think mainly the Legend of Sleepy Hollow was more of the popular one because of it coming around Halloween time and people watching during that time.
Yeah. I really know the Wind in the Willows was set in its own videotape release during the 80s and early 90s, when Disney Home Video was doing a lot of the splitting up of these features from the 40s, just to release them as short and get double the money from sales at the retail level. That's when a lot of the things happened, where all the shorts were separated. And it wasn't until I did a little bit more research at that time on my own that I saw that, everything came from different movies, and they should have been kept together and released that way as they were originally released. But, that's when the beginning of the Michael Eisner era and home video all kind of coincided, and they were trying to make as much money as possible at that time.
That makes sense. All right. Anything else you guys want to add about the features for today?
The only thing that I have to ask is, if it's called The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, why were the stories reversed?
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Sorry, it sounds better in that order.
Yeah.
Toad and Mr. Toad and Ichabod, or The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad?
The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad was not the original title of the film. The original title of the film was Two Fabulous Characters.
I wanted top billing.
Yeah, I like what they went with better than Two Fabulous Characters.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, they don't make a font like this for a good guy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a villain font if I've ever seen it.
It looks like broken up wood.
Frozen, yeah. Oh, it looks like, let's say it's kind of like Frozen from here.
Speaking
That's
of
right.
Frozen, is anyone going to see Frozen 2 in the theater? I heard it's like all the theaters are just full of children, and it's doing really well. So
Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews, actually. I have heard people absolutely love it, and then I've heard people saying it's I guess, I don't know, but it's not as good as number one, but
Well,
I don't know.
I would assume that it's probably just a reach for money to extend the franchise.
I
Frozen
saw
2,
people
search
tweet
for
that they
more-
like the second one better.
That's what I hear too.
That's
they're
interesting.
going to do a third one to make it like a trilogy at least. They'll probably
Really?
three.
That would make the investments that they're making at the parks that much more valuable to them.
Yeah.
That definitely would make sense.
Well, now it's the 70th anniversary of Ichabod Adventures
Mr.
of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because they had their merchandise at the Disney D23.
They have them in
And
the
I'm
park
still
currently.
kind of kicking my butt that we didn't buy some of that stuff. But is it still available in the park, you said,
It
or
might
no?
be.
Or just go online.
There was a box plush set of
well, not just that, but that mug was nice too.
yeah. But they had the Headless Horseman
Sure.
and they had Mr. Toad. And it was probably the box was probably about
It was like that box, the Mickey box thing.
not that big. But it was to commemorate the 70th of the animated feature, and
Well, that's
it was
not Disneyland.
I think it was $59.99. I just
Wow.
Hey, get down.
Is he talking to me?
getting somewhere
That kitty's been behind you a few times. I like that cat.
Big Scout. All right, guys. So we're gonna get ready to wind up here. Those of you who are watching, if there's any topics or anything that you guys would like us to see from our channel, we aren't doing this every week. In fact, we're kind of looking at our next time and tentatively.
I do have an idea for the next show, but I'll wait till after.
Sounds good. Tentatively, we are looking at the Saturday after Christmas. I work in retail, so it's harder for me. Plus, I have a trip with my mom to go to Vegas. So that's 2 weekends that we have out of it in December. So it looks like the best time for us. We want to keep it on Saturdays about the same time. If there's anything you guys can think of that you would like to see us.
Well, we have another Saturday, I think, also that we're doing something. But
Oh, it's today.
no, in December. Sorry.
I love your face in that picture, Derek. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I look like Shaggy, or like I should be on Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
You're like, woo.
Thank you, Shep, you guys. I appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody, for watching us and staying this long with us. We didn't think it was going to be an hour and a half show, but it was still fun.
Yeah.
I can't believe we talked about that for so long.
Well,
Good for us.
Our conversation went on longer than the movie actually lasted.
You're right.
and we're talking about 2 different features, so that's also something that was made it a little bit longer than normal.
So I think I've actually really dissected a movie like we did, so that was funny.
Yeah. And we'll just get more involved with things as we get going along and find out what we are going to be doing. So, all right. We'll go around the horn one more time. We are the 5 Foolish Mortals. This is our very first show. Also, as part of that is Jim. A little bit about you and your channel.
I'm in Florida, so my channel's Disney World centric. I hope to be making a 3-hour video about water rats. No, I won't be doing that. I did finally start putting together our Saturday at the D23 Expo, so it was fun to see that footage really for the first time, because I've never watched it before this week, so I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I finally started putting it on a timeline, so I'll get that out there very soon. But other than that, I hope to, on Monday, go to the Magic Kingdom resorts to check out all of their Christmas decorations. You know, some of those resorts have the Walt Disney World iconic Christmas trees. There are 9 around Walt Disney World. And I think I'm going to see 3 of them on Monday. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll put a video out about that soon. And then the Festival of the Holidays starts at Epcot on the 29th. So I hope to go to that very soon and get some cookies, do the cookie crawl there. So that's what I've got on the docket. And I had fun today, guys. Hope you did too.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie from the Dizney Nerd Herders, and we are based in Massachusetts. So we still do a lot of Disney World vlogs, but we also do some local stuff. You know, as Avery likes to, he creates his own comics. So once in a while, once he creates a comics, I will usually read those for him. Sophie is involved with theater and music, so we try to get her more involved in that area. And we have a very talented wife who did these drawings for us tonight. Last minute drawings. And for those of you who came in late, if you guys didn't see Mr. Toad, look what she did for Mr. Toad. It's too close now. That's better. That's better. There you go. Now you can see it. She did this like 10 minutes before the show tonight. So
That's awesome.
we're going to have to, that's a great idea that Jim had. I'm going to have to do like a video of her drawing all these different characters. You know, she's in the chat, Stacy Herder. Send her your request.
Yes.
Other than that, you know, we do our shows on Wednesday night. It's called the Not Quite Ready for Prime Time live stream with the Dizney Nerd Herders. We have these guys on often as guests, and hopefully that will continue. And let's see, next week we have a buddy of mine who's going to be talking Disney and comics with us. His name's Scott Harris, very talented comic book guy. He knows everything about comics, and yeah, very excited about the year ahead. We've been making strides with our videos, and our editing department is improving every day, and we're so proud of them. They're coming along very nicely. Who's also our artistic director. Other than that, yeah, I think that's it. You know, we just do local things. We do food reviews and whatnot. But hopefully, next August, we're going back down to Disney World. So
Cool.
Then.
Very good. Ben.
Yes. I'm Ben. I am one of 3 from Pepper Tree Villa. I do a weekly vlog post on Thursday mornings, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, called Life with Ben. Probably one of the most scintillating 6 minutes every week you'll ever watch.
Yes.
And I'm also part of the PTV live show on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And then Arnie, my brother, does a daily dose of Disney, where he takes a day and talks about the day of history of the Disney company. And that runs on a daily basis. Weekdays normally at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and various times on weekends. We are also in the middle of setting up our forest for Christmas. And we've been doing several live streams with that related to decorating trees and setting up the villa for the Christmas season. But we are enjoying what we do, and I'm very excited to be part of the 5 Foolish Mortals.
Thank you. We like to explore. So we have cruising videos that we've been releasing. We have Disney stuff that we are releasing. We are in the middle of our Norwegian escape cruise. It's actually been a couple of weeks since we did a video release on it. It probably won't be until next week when we do the next one. As of right now, things are just a little bit crazy for us. We're hosting Thanksgiving, so our time has been limited getting everything ready for that. So we did a Norwegian escape cruise on the to Canada. So hopefully, if you haven't watched that, please, if you could watch that, because those have been a lot of fun. We went with my mom, so she's the star of the show. And in addition to that, we also have D23 merchandise that I just transferred over to my my computer. That probably won't be shown until January, though. Maybe even next year. You know, I mean,
well, it will be next year in January.
Exactly.
You know, we're going to do it in January.
Dilly.
Next year, though.
Exactly. And when the next D23 is, who knows?
We do plan on having a Thanksgiving or our Thanksgiving special show on Wednesday, as long as everything works out where we can still have a show on Wednesday. So that'll be fun to do too. We did one last year and we had a good time with it. So we'll do one this year.
Yeah. So you'll see all of our channels in the description down below. We'll put that in there. They're not in there currently. Oh, actually, I think they are in there already. But definitely check each other's channels out. Check us out. We've been in the adventure together, the 5 Foolish Mortals. we will have a song that we are going to be practicing, like the Dapper Dans. That these
Oh
guys-
yes.
about 10 seconds before we went live.
That was
So-
like a squirrel moment. Hey, you guys want to sing a song like this? Jim's like, not in the last 10 seconds before the show.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. So I think that's it, guys. So once again, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your support. And as we like to, well, we're gonna have to come up with a new tagline. So
For all of us for this show.
Yeah, true.
we're gonna,
Uh,
so foolish mortals we may be, it's time to go because no, I can't say that. Let it be.
That was like a